G'day folks, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a quick video on a little bit of a recap or an update on I suppose a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff and maybe a little bit of a general chat about things as to here we are at the channel. We're coming up to the end of 2024. There's all sorts of the weird and wonderful and amazing and good things I think out of the US election that have happened across the world. As for us in the year, it's been a fairly tough year in doing all sorts of stuff in the work side of things, personal side of things. It's all been one of those sort of years. One of the things that we banged into in the process of this year was earlier in the beginning of it, our trusty Triton, that little white truck that you see in our videos, let us down. We were on our way to a little bit of a reunion thing for Sam down in the middle of the country. And it did the surprise attack of dropping a piston in the 4-cylinder 2.5 litre diesel engine at only, it's about 180,000 Ks, so it's a little bit premature, a little bit what you wouldn't expect out of that sort of thing, but it can happen. Running a fair bit of boost, turbo diesel, and listen, we don't know what actually happened. I suspect an injector failure that caused a piston failure. But very much a bit of a surprise for us. We remedied that in a few situations, and I suppose for a quick bigger recap than that, for those people that don't know, me and Sam run a mechanical workshop, which is a performance mechanical workshop. We build V8 engines, we supercharge V8 engines, we do all sorts of stuff, but largely with fairly modern fuel injected V8 engines and supercharging and dyno tuning and computer tuning, that sort of stuff is what we do. We're a small business outside or in a country town that do work for all over our state, all over the country a little bit, but all over state mainly. And that's what we do. So a 4-cylinder diesel wouldn't make sense in some senses for that side of things, but suited very much what we were doing. And for 10 years we've been, that Triton has been the trusty steed that's sort of been through all that sort of stuff, some of the rough country and things we go into on occasions, but it still is out in the bush and it's what we use. It's set up for our shooting side of things, which have a video on that side of things as well. But to remedy that problem, we went through the process of what should we do, and I suppose it moves into a bit of discussion which I'll share for I think the sake of it, putting my opinion forward, I think it's a reasonable way of looking at things. And that is, we have, well, as I've just explained, we do a lot of work with modern cars and making them go better, making them, doubling their horsepower in some places, but making them perform a lot better. A lot of computer tuning and that side of things which is involved with modern cars, so it's certainly a generation younger or few than what I am and where I come from in the mechanical world, but it's what we do. And in that, we are also moving into a world where both the government push of electric cars, of battery operated electric cars, but all forms of electric cars is really being pushed. And I suppose the whole corporate world, it's changed from people used to keep cars. A lot of people used to keep cars for a lot of years. Now a lot more people are turning them over regularly. Whether that's, largely it's because they're sold them, largely because it's an easy thing to do with finance and that side of things. It's easy to swap things over and not deal with maintenance and just go with whether it's free servicing or free warranty or whatever it is, and this process, which is all actually about sales. So it's a corporate side of things. And there is some pretty sound logic to the commercial side of things, which is, and I suppose going into that is, we all need to be employed in some form or other. Very few get to run their own business and be in the place that me and Sam are. It's not necessarily the easier road, but it is definitely where our own boss is. So that means we work twice as hard and get paid half as much, I suppose, in some places, but we are in our own control. We're our own fault, our own benefit, our own what we are. The majority of the world and the majority of you will be people who work for the man, work for a corporation, work for a boss, work for someone. And those jobs have to come from somewhere. That is all where, whether it's the new car industry or it's the service industry or it's the whatever form, whether it's corporate or whether it's local or whatever it is all about Not you rub my back, I rub yours, but it still is in that fashion. That is the nature of how this side of capitalism works. You need to sell more cars, so you get the more cars can be made, so there's jobs for people making cars. Of course, the world we're living in tends to be offshoring that to a different country that's in a different status, where they're coming up through that world. They're going from third world to first world, I suppose you'd say, in some form or other. So in their wherever they are through that process, the car manufacturing happens a lot cheaper in their world than it does in our world. And there's smart things that could be done to remedy that, and maybe the US politics is about to show us a little bit of that side of things, but it's where we're at the moment. So buying new cars is sort of relevant on that level, but on the other side of things, then a little bit from the electric car side of things. And don't get me wrong, electric motors are an extraordinary efficient way to deliver power or deliver torque, and they deliver horsepower along those lines. So extraordinary efficient things at doing that. They've been doing it for longer than internal combustion engines in the way of going through the what's actually happened in our world. Electric cars have been around for a long time, but they haven't been mainstream, and they haven't been as efficient, they haven't been as effective until just recently. And obviously Elon Musk and the wonders of what that man's created is a big part of that. But it isn't all just because he's a good guy and what he's doing, that sort of stuff, doesn't mean electric cars, and certainly battery operated cars, are a good thing. There is a lot of negatives, and I suppose what I'm trying to say in a simple way, I'm putting it, batteries are an extraordinarily poor way to store energy at this stage when it comes to a motor vehicle. The weight, the expense, the replacement costs of them, that sort of stuff are extremely negative, which people who now have bought the electric cars, whether it's from a logical standpoint or from a virtuous standpoint, they are in some places, they will be in other places, struggling with the fact those cars become worth nothing because of the problems basically of their battery. Now hybrid cars and there's other forms of that side of things that, okay, we have an engine, we have a internal combustion engine and an electric engine with a small battery, that sort of stuff, then okay, there's some balances there that make a bit more sense. But the truth of it is we're not quite ready for it, and the truth of it is we've never actually got as much out of the internal combustion engine as we should have. We should be putting more focus into it. We should be using our fossil fuels more efficiently, without question. We should be using them. They are an extraordinarily efficient way to store energy, unlike a battery is. An extraordinarily efficient way to store, ultimately, the big fusion reactor of the sun to store its energy is in our fossil fuels. So they are doing nothing else. So it's a very, very good thing to be using, but we should be using them very efficiently. So enough of that. What I'd actually say when it comes into, if it is about saving the planet, if it's about being more efficient, then buying a new car every 5 years is not a good idea. Not a simple thing. Even if that car uses absolutely nothing of that energy, it still costs a huge amount of energy, a huge amount of whatever form of energy you've got to create it, and raw materials and all the rest of it to create it. And yet we're still chucking out the old cars. They become worth nothing. We have piles and piles of old cars that are still pretty good cars. Yes, there's some maintenance required. Yes, there's things that should be built better or replaced on that sort of stuff. But if you want to, even as an individual, want to be more efficient, then keeping a car longer is a more efficient process for the world than buying another one, regardless of the energy stars that this new one has to offer. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying in a simple, logical, 1 + 1 = 2 process. If you keep a car for 10 years, and so that means that you didn't force another one to be built to fix you 2 or 3 times in that process, then you've cost the world less. So that was a little bit of the thing that we banged into where, okay, we've kept this, we've sort of got onto that ride already, we've sort of stopped buying new cars a little bit, and we've been going along, we've got some nice ones, and we've got this, our truck's doing the right thing and that sort of stuff. And then the engine blowing up is, okay, what are we going to do? Immediately, it is our shopping trolley as well as our local work truck. So we went and thought about all the different things that we could purchase. Very easy to go and get a lease and get another vehicle. Or be a little more frugal, buy something second hand with low Ks and do that sort of stuff. when we actually stopped and thought about it, we come up with what would actually suit us as just a town runabout. You know, a little ATV, a licensable ATV would probably do that job pretty well, so that you could actually use it out, four-wheel drive out in the bush, but it also bore around town sort of stuff. And well, what that turned into is this. Yeah, actually a 2004, so a 20-year-old vehicle, inline six, back when those engines were not indestructible, pretty close to it, going to last a long, long time. It's only had like 120,000 Ks on it, so the 80,000 miles on it, so, or less, 75,000 miles on it, so good on, you know, it's got a long time before it's going to need work, and it is not too much more than a little ATV. It's just pulled off a roof rack and bits and pieces, and put a table in the back there, so lots of space for the shopping trolley, for what Sam does around the place, for what I do around the place, and turn into a great little vehicle and that sort of stuff. Not super fuel efficient, but not terrible either. But we don't drive it that much. We're not people who do 30,000 miles or Ks a year. It probably would see in the 5,000 to 6,000 Ks or miles a year, so it's not using a lot of fuel and that sort of stuff, and a great little bog around vehicle, does the job really well. And yes, that was out in the field a little bit. We kept out of it. We kept it out of the shooting and when that was actually happening. But that was in the process of doing something that I was considering doing with the Triton, the Mitsubishi Triton, when we first got it, and that was doing an LS conversion to it. So yes, that's what we've done to fix that one there. We have basically put in a 6.2 litre V8, aluminium V8 Chev, so it's a Gen 4, essentially an LS3 engine, and a 6-speed automatic transmission. So that's what's gone into that Triton. That there's still some development things to happen. Yes, it does need to go through with licensing and all that sort of things to bring it up to code in Western Australia, but it's all on that path. It's doing really nicely. It sounds a lot better. It's a lot nicer to drive. It's got 3 times the horsepower, and it's and we're not messing with the smelly diesel anymore. So anyway, that's what we did. That's a little share of what that vehicle is. Still the same. It's still trucking around the same. It's going to carry on for at least another 10 years and that side of things. A conversion done very much out of trying to be as practical as possible. And I suppose I wanted to share that sort of stuff for those people who don't realise about where electric cars are at the moment. I think they potentially, well, they are the way forward in some form or other. But right now, the battery electric cars, probably not the best investment you could ever make. And if it's about, you're on the lease process, you're just doing that thing, I get it. You know, we've been there, I understand that. So it's every 3 years you change a car. But if you're really doing it because you want to save the planet, then maybe keeping that car longer and restructuring things is probably a smarter process for the planet's sake. And that necessarily may be a little more work involved, a little more effort involved, but also probably ultimately a little cheaper process as well. Anyway guys, that's one there. That's, well, once again, not for me to preach. I just really wanted to share what that was with us. As for what a little bit of the background of what's going on behind with us and that white Triton you see in the video all the time, and yeah, just a little bit of sharing. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for checking in. We'll catch you next time.